Okay, so now the big moment. This is the chassis that the system will be going in. Obviously, I've got the system here. This chassis has got the old server hardware in it that was being used. And it's screwed down at the back there. You have to find the appropriate size screwdriver. And then unscrew it. There's also an additional screw here at the front. It has to come out as well. And then it just slides off like that. This is the existent server. As you can see, there's a 4-pin power connection there, and here is the other connection here. And you've also got additional power connections as well up the front here, depending on what you need. We'll be needing some of these in this upcoming installation. You can see the SATA cables there going to the little drive, and obviously that has to come out now. You can see this one has been bent a little bit because it was really tight in the case. It's reasonable, but we'll probably be replacing it with one of the right angle connectors to have better clearance. Here you can see the custom remote power connection unit that used to be in for turning these off and on from a button much lower down from where they're mounted. That's not going to be reconnected, so although I won't be removing it from the chassis due to the way it's fixed, I will be taking it out of the electrical path of the board because obviously there's remote management. So now I need to remove the mains lead from the board and all the associated extra leads around the edge here, and then I'll bring it back in once all that's been disconnected and we can remove the board. Okay, so with the cables all removed, we can get to the screws. And the screws are here, 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 and there's another one here. So we'll remove those. And then the board should just come out. You can see there are all the connections on that board. So we can put that over there out of the way. Next thing is there's this I/O shield here. As you can see, it has actually been modified somewhat for that board, but it would have to match up for this board. So now we'll check and see whether it will actually fit. So as you can see, we've got USB ports and network ports, another pair of network ports, more USBs. So this little blanking tab has to come out here because that's going to be used. And we'll see now if everything lines up or not. Obviously it doesn't matter about extra air holes, but other stuff has to match. So what have we got that matches? Well, we have with the USB connections at the back here, we can see USB connections match up there, however they don't match up here at all, any of this section. So this section will have to be cut away to allow for this particular motherboard, whilst retaining some of this shielding here to protect the board itself. Obviously it only needs to be cut out to that section there to allow access to those ports. So I'll do that next and then I'll bring you back in. Okay, so here's the system with the back plate adjusted for the new motherboard. And the thing I have to say about when you're adjusting these is make absolutely sure that no swarf, tiny bits of filed metal wind up in the case, because that can short things out. Also, I apologise in advance if we get any extra background noise. I've had to open the window because things were getting a bit too warm. Okay, so here's the board. You can see now the ports are all now properly exposed at the back of the case. You can see network ports and the USB ports are now lining up properly with a bit of space as well. And you can also see the reset and the ID LED there at the back, reset button and ID LED. So that's good. Next thing to do is make sure that the board is properly lined up with its holes and then screw it into place. You don't screw the screws down really tight to start off with, you just put them in loosely to start with, in a cross pattern across the board. Making sure you don't get any of the threads cross-threaded. And making sure that you don't stress the motherboard, because the last thing you want to do is stress the motherboard. With this case, you don't have to worry about accidentally grounding the motherboard to the chassis on places where it shouldn't be, because there is a non-conductive sheet included with the board, included with the case, and you never do these screws up like really tight on the ends. That just damages the board. You just run them up so that they don't come out, basically. So just gently do them up, make sure they're actually firmly in, but don't like crank them down really tight. The next thing to put in will be the system headers. So that's a little bit of a fiddly job, but they all plug onto this little interface here as per the manual. So I'm going to cut the video now and I'll come back once those are connected. Okay, so now I actually moved ahead a bit more than just putting these connectors in. I also put a right angle SATA connector in up to the hard drive over here. I moved the 8-pin header out for extra power. It was tucked in here before. Also connected the main power for the system there. Those cables do need sort of flattening out a little bit and organising a bit better to get them to not stick up as much there. I also, down that part of the case in the corner there, also taped off the custom power control loom, because that's not going to be used in this system anymore. And I also connected the front USB headers. Now, I also did a little quick power on test, because sometimes these systems will work without having to connect the 4-pin header there. It depends on the motherboard, it depends on the CPU. In this case, it wouldn't power on without that, so I've had to get a little connector. So, purchase this little adapter. Had to go out and buy that. And what this has is it has a 8-pin interface there, and it produces two 4-pins there, which are just clipped together, but you can separate them out so that they can be used individually like that. So I'll just get that connected in, and then I'll restart the video and we can see if the system will power up.